Alright guys, so we're here, we're just getting ready to build the TBS Caipirinha, but I wanted to show you something first. In the manual, it says, and I'll read it verbatim for you guys, flying style, ultra lightweight, no main tube spars, wing ribbon, cross ribbon, 1/2 length. So I'm going to weigh these out, and I'm going to show you how much weight is added between lightest and full reinforcement. Alright, so in the manual it says ultra lightweight flying style, main tube spars, none, cross ribbon, 1/2 length. So the main cross ribbon here weighs about 2.5 grams. Cut that in half, that's 1.25 grams, which is crazy lightweight. 1.25 grams of weight across the entire weight of the aircraft is not going to save you a lot of flying time. Alright, the next flying style that they talk about is strong. It's the all-purpose one. Now, both tubes and the cross ribbon, but both tubes at half length. So, okay, both the tubes is 14. So half of that, half of 14 is 7, and 7 plus 1.25 is 8.25 grams, which is practically nothing. Still practically nothing. Now, super strong would be all of these added together, just every single piece of carbon. And that's 21 grams. That's not even an ounce. I realize that that is a little bit of weight on an aircraft, but the way I fly, and if you want to get some very good fast passes, you're going to risk cracking your wings, especially going between strong and super strong. 8 to 21 grams is a difference of 13 grams. That's very, very, very small. I do not think that it's going to affect the aircraft nearly as much as it sounds like, or as they make it seem in the manual. But we will test it out, we will see. Okay, so the first thing that the manual is asking us to do is glue the carbon rods in position here in the wing. Now, I have a special technique for doing that. I do it 1/2 in one place at a time. Now, the other thing that we have to make relatively good sure of is that we have the short tube and the long tube where they belong. The long carbon tube goes in the back end of the wing, and the short carbon tube, which is the one I'm holding, is in the front end. If we get that wrong, the Caipirinha is not going to fit together. So, got to make sure that's correct. Here's the long tube. So what I like to do, just to be sure that the glue distributes evenly, is while I'm I put the glue on the tube using thick CA, and while I'm doing that, I rotate the tube just to make sure that when we put it in the slot, all of that glue distributes evenly. Now, we're going to pick this up. We're going to insert the tube in the slot, and while we're doing that, we're going to turn it to make sure all of that glue distributes as absolutely evenly as humanly possible. And we'll feel it start to set, so don't stop turning it. Do not stop turning it. Now we've got some excess. We got to get it off before it cures and messes up this joint here. Okay, the next step should be self-explanatory. And that step is to put the wings together. And before we do that, we should take out the GoPro fitting, the little dummy piece of foam there, just so it doesn't get stuck. So, wings go together like this, not like this, not like this. The only way that they will actually fit, Trappy was great at designing this because there's really only one way you can possibly fit the wings together. The carbon tubes act like an assembly jig so that you really, essentially, can't put it together wrong. No matter how hard you try, you can't put it together wrong. So, here's what we're going to do for that. We've got the carbon tubes, same process as before. We're going to spiral the glue, because the idea is to get the glue distributed as absolutely evenly as possible. And I'll speed this up so you guys don't have to sit through me gluing. Okay. There we go. And now just, you know, for good measure, on this part here, what I would do, if I were you, is I'd take a little bit of glue and I just put it in these patches around where the spars attach. And then on these little tongues for the tongue and groove slots in the actual foam itself. So I should make a note, I've been using this non-foam safe CA. EPP, extended polypropylene, and EPO, which I believe is expanded polyolefin, are the only two types of foam that you can do this with. Try it on styro, try it on anything else, and it'll eat right through it. So don't do it. If you've got a wing made out of this same foam, or an aircraft made out of the same foam, go right ahead. Will not kill it, as I believe I have just proven. So there we go. Let's get that extra glue off the back. Make sure everything is tightened up. Clamp it real well. Oh, bottom of the GoPro mount, that's something we gotta glue, so you can just stretch it a little bit, because EPO is very, very, very stretchy foam that returns to its normal shape very quickly. And we're going to push that together. And we're going to count 230, and I'll speed that up also. Alright, so you know how I said I was going to speed it up? Not actually going to time lapse. Just going to take some Instaset accelerator and give it a spritz. And it doesn't matter how much accelerator you get on there, as long as some of it comes in contact with the CA, because technically this is a catalytic reaction. It doesn't really matter as long as I get at least one molecule in the polymer chain started. The whole thing zips together like a chemical zipper. So it's pretty cool. And we can let that go. Next we have these nice cutouts here, and these are for our wing spars and our rear spar that goes right over the motor mount. So this is definitely a necessity. I don't know how you could fly a plane without motor mount reinforcement, but you know, I'm not going to argue with trapeze design. A lot of people have been having great success with this airplane. So there it is, dry fit. We know that's the right one. Let's pop it out. And this one, you don't really have to be as disciplined on the CA application, but I always recommend a thin coat because there's not as much space in there as it appears. And doing that coat on both sides. Okay, so push it in, make sure that it's lined up. And here's an old builder's trick. Take the back of an X-Acto knife, put it on top of the carbon, and just run it down. You can really use anything. You could also use a credit card if you've got a credit card that you're willing to destroy, but as long as you make sure that that's flush. The other purpose of this is also to spread the CA out over the top to seal that crack off completely. So that even if the CA breaks between the carbon strip and the foam, you've still got what is basically a seal on top, so that it can't actually remove itself in any way. So the other two we've also got to put here and here. Well, okay. All right. There we have it. Both of them are installed. Now we have a few more things to do. We still need to we have a few more things to do mechanically anyways. We still need to install the GoPro mount. That is wood. We need to install the motor mount that goes back here. And we also need to install the Coroplast winglets. Now we can either choose between arrow and bunny ears, but I actually have a way that'll let us choose both. Alright, it's time to assemble the plywood parts that'll become the motor mount and the GoPro mount. What I'm going to do is I'm going to assemble these dry outside of the plane. I'm going to glue them up, and then I'm going to give them a cool coat of gloss black paint so that they match the wing. So that's going to look pretty cool. So basically you've got three pieces. That notch, the whole idea of that is to go over the carbon spar. So, deadly simple. Pops together just like this. And what I'm going to do, I'll zoom in on that so you guys can see it, is I'm going to fillet it, and I'm going to show you exactly how I filleted it and exactly where. So first, right in that crack there, I'm going to put a couple of drops of thick CA, and then I'm going to rub it in so that it soaks into the pores of the wood. And I'm going to snap down that piece right on top. Get it a nice 90-degree angle. Zap it with the accelerator. And then in here, this is a weak point. In most motor mounts, that's a weak point, especially on a wing, because the pressure, the force from the motor is going that way. So we're going to take a little more CA. We're going to make that. And that's called a fillet. And it basically is going to soak into the wood like a corner bracket in a shelf. And it's going to add more strength. Keep the motor mount from cracking off. So I'm going to accelerate that. And then we're just going to do the exact same process here on the top. Okay, there's our completed motor mount. Now on to the GoPro. Okay, so now we're going to do the GoPro box. It looks a lot more complicated than the motor mount, but have no fear, it isn't. Basically, the way these dovetails are made is that they can only fit together one way, which is awesome for guys who are new to building aircraft from kits and are a little bit intimidated putting pieces together like this. So there we have it, the GoPro mount. I want you guys to notice a couple of important things. One, you notice I only filleted one surface because this is not undergoing flight stresses as much as the motor mount will. The only reason I filleted the front surface of the GoPro mount is that I am paranoid that my GoPro is going to fall out the front during a dive or something, or pull up too hard, whatever. It's also very important that these lobes here face the back, because the whole idea of what we're going to do next, we're going to insert the GoPro mount inside the nose of the Caipirinha, but not before it gets a slick coat of paint. So I am going to go ahead and do that. Alright, while we're waiting on that paint, why don't I go over winglets. There are two kinds that come with the TBS Caipirinha. the so-called bunny ear style and the arrow style. Now, I've flown wings before. I've flown 5 different wings that I've built. And honestly, I prefer the bunny ear, and there's a very simple reason. In this case, and usually in most cases too, if I line these up, tip to tip like that, the bunny ear has significantly more surface area than the arrow shape. So it's not going to be much, but it is going to give you a little bit more locked in feel on yaw, and it's going to prevent your plane getting blown around as much by the wind. So let me show you how to attach those. It's very simple. It comes with these little airfoil shaped Velcro pieces, and all you got to do is peel the backing off of the, I prefer the hook side on the aircraft, because if you ever remove the bunny ear winglets, the hook side is in the aircraft, and the hook side is the one that catches lint and all kinds of stuff. So leave the hook side on the aircraft. The aircraft's probably not going to be in your pocket for very long. Hopefully never, actually. So yeah, it works out just fine. And then find where on the aircraft these line up. So in my case, as you can see, it's getting a little bit hard to deal with. Alright, so as you can see, I've got my airfoil piece. I've got the plane. I'm just going to gently lay it over. We're going to start at the leading edge, because if we have some extra space, we want to clip it off. Okay. There we go. We have a little piece of carbon interfering, so I am going to quickly get rid of that, and then I'll be right back with you. Okay, there we go. And then installing the winglet. It's very simple. Remember, leave these attached. It's so much easier to work with them attached. Don't try to pull the Velcro apart. It is 1,000 times easier to work with these things attached. Take it out, line it up. Leading edge first. Keeping the underside level with the underside of the wing. Okay, there we go. So there's one winglet installed. Not bad. So there's one winglet installed. Very easy to deal with. Gives you a lot of surface area. And if you wanted to, you could pin this down and put a rudder on there. Link that up with a Y harness and get dual rudders. Or mix it into your aux channel and use air brakes. But for a plane this small, I mean, air brakes really aren't that necessary. Yeah, that's all there is to it. So I'm going to go ahead and do the other one, and then I'll show you guys what's next. Okay, another quick thing, guys. This should be kind of self-explanatory, but on the other side of the Caipirinha, we've got the battery bay. We've got a Velcro strap that goes through there, so we need something to keep it from ripping the foam apart, digging in too much. We've just got this little piece of plywood support. It's very easy to put in. So to make sure the glue sticks really well, there's one way I like to put glue down, especially for large flat surfaces. Okay, so zigzag one direction with a small amount of glue. And then to make sure that you have a perfect coverage, zigzag the other direction. So now when we go in and we press this down, it's going to thin out into a single sheet of adhesive inside the foam there. Simple. That's all there is to it. Alright, so while the paint is drying there, I'll show you guys how to do the Elavons. So take your plane, turn it upside down. Notice that you've got the Elavon with the pre-drilled holes. It's pre-covered. The non-tapered side goes outward like this, and you see that because of the bevel in the foam, it's going to line up just like that. So we want it flush with the top, which is underneath. The way we're going to do that we're going to turn it over. And then we're going to take a piece of tape and lay it across the top just like this. So how we're going to get that to stay is we're going to take a piece of tape and we're going to lay it across the top just like that, and then we'll get to how to hinge it properly on the bottom side too. The tape that I prefer to use with something like this is Scotch Tough. It's like a clear fiber reinforced duct tape, but it's a lot lighter than standard duct tape or Gorilla Tape. And Gorilla Tape is strong, but it's really heavy stuff, so only use it on your massive foamies, like if you were going to build a TBS Zephyr or a Skywalker X8. So we're going to take a piece of this. And we're going to stretch it the length of the Elavon, and we're going to cut it. We're going to lay it just partially on the Elavon like this. Then we're going to lay that down there where it belongs. Smooth it out. Make sure you get every single little air bubble out of there. A very easy way to do it is by taking a credit card and peel this up just a tad, peel it back, and then carefully get every single air bubble smoothed out of there. So it fits perfectly. All right. So there's one side. It actuates. Now, to keep it from going through, on this side, we're going to take another piece. We're going to fold the Elavon all the way over, like that. We're going to lay this piece in the crack between the Elavon and the rest of the wing. Remember, use that credit card to smooth it out. That helps enormously. Always make sure that your tape covers the whole length of the Elavon, because the whole idea of using this tape instead of hinges is to increase the aircraft's efficiency by not allowing air to pass between the Elavon and the fuselage, because that produces turbulence. Turbulence sucks up energy, and we just don't want that. Okay, there's always going to be just a little bit extra, but scissors will make really quick work of that. So don't leave a lip like this so you can cut it off with scissors or an X-Acto knife. And now your Elavon is hinged. There you go. That's all there is to it. Take the excess and cut it off with an X-Acto. Okay, so I wanted to show you guys something that I just thought of. here on the inner portions of the Elavons, I added an extra triangle of tape. So it's 2 layers with about a 1/2 inch of overlap on either side. The reason I did this is because this point right here is where the control linkage is going to attach. So this point is going to be where the Elavon is going to be under the most stress. So it added maybe 2 grams, 2 or 3 grams to the aircraft. Very, very lightweight tape. So it shouldn't cut my flight time down too much, but it's going to give me a lot of stability, and I'm not going to get too much oscillation when I'm flying at high speeds. Okay, so the next thing that we have to do is install the motor mount. I'm just going to go right like that. Top sides here, level with the top of the wing. First we need to cut out these foam pieces that are going to get in our way. Make sure you cut them carefully so you don't widen the slot more than it needs to be. And also make sure that you carefully cut them all the way through so it doesn't dig and take chunks out of the foam that we want to keep. Alright, there we go. So let's dry fit this just to make sure that we've got it in and set up correctly before we apply any CA. There we go. I do believe that's all there is to it. It fits in there real nice and clean. So now what we got to do is we just got to spread a little bit of CA in there. Get that puppy bolted down, or CA'd down to be accurate, more accurate. So we've got our CA, and in this case I'm going to put it on the channel so it doesn't mess up the look of the paint. Okay, so the next thing you have to do is you need to cut out the slits for the Elavons. They are pre-routed. They're much easier to see on the back where you don't have the tape. So in order to get the control horns in there, we're going to need to cut the covering away. So I start on the back and then I just go, there we go. And I do realize that it does leave, you know, this microscopic slit on the back. But if I really want to get rid of that, I'll cover it up with so I do realize that it leaves this microscopic little slit on the back, but if I want to cover that up, I can get some yellow monocoat and cover it very, very easily. Not a big deal at all. So let's flip it over. Here's the beginnings of our hole right here. So we're going to have to open that just a little bit. Okay, let's see if the control horn fits. Yep, gotta widen it just a bit. A little more. Alright, let's give it a try. You gotta give it just a little bit of elbow grease, but it'll drop right down in there like that. And now all we have to do is CA it in place. Now just putting a fillet between here and here once it's already put in, filling there and filling in there is not going to work well because CA does not stick very well to covering. So what I am going to do is I'm going to spread a little on each side of the tab. And then I'm going to push it in place. We're just going to give it a little blast of accelerator to help it along its way while it's drying. Let me move the camera over so you can see exactly what I'm talking about. So here's the horn. just up ahead of it, that's where the servo attaches. So not a very complicated setup. Mechanically very simple design, which is awesome. You know, if you guys ever took an engineering course, they'd tell you that the more parts that you have on this thing, the more likely it is to break down in the air. So I am a big, big fan of very simple aircraft. Now this side, all we have to do is exactly the same thing. Remember to make sure that it lines up with your servo arm properly. Alright, now it's time to attach the GoPro box. And my workbench here is starting to get pretty messy, so that means we know we're doing the right thing. Alright, so this Velcro strap here is going to fit in this channel in the back. To give you an idea what it looks like dry fit. Push that in, make sure that that's in its little channel. Make sure you don't get any glue on the strap, because if you want to move the strap around or adjust it or put in a bigger strap or whatever, glue is going to prevent you from doing that. You'd have to cut it out of the foam, so that's not a good thing to do. Now I think, you know, if you're comfortable with the way that it's set up, all you got to do is make sure to permanently glue it in place. The way that we're going to do that is only on two sides, because remember, we don't want to catch the Velcro strap. So we're going to do some here, we're going to do some also right here. And what's cool about the GoPro box is it has an outlet if you want to do FPV through your GoPro, or you want to charge your GoPro in flight. There are cables that allow you to do that. But the problem with using GoPro for FPV is that the GoPro Hero 3 has about a latency of 0.4 seconds. So that means that everything you see on the GoPro Hero 3 is 0.4 seconds late. And if you're flying at a high rate of speed pretty near something, your plane can travel tens of feet in 0.4 seconds. So it's not recommended as a primary camera choice. Alright, so let's push that in there. Make sure that our strap is nice and free and that that is comfortably held down. Okay, excellent. And when we're flying, we'll just keep this to the side of the lens so that it doesn't get in our video. That would be nasty. And we are really, really close to done. All we've got to do now is begin working on the electronics installation.